Hello, my Patreon supporters. I am making my video for those of you who have subscribed to get at least 2 videos a month. So I hope that you enjoy this one. I'm just going to make a short video about my thoughts on ideological hypocrisy. And I'm going to look at like Al Franken and Omarosa as some of my examples. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I guess I find myself, as I grow and learn about different things and have different experiences and have worked in different spaces and different movements and involved in different initiatives, I've come to really learn how fickle we are when it comes to supporting our ideologies or the things that we claim to be true for ourselves. And that's a huge problem. We are either for what's right or we're not. And it does not rely on who benefits or who is affected by it. It's either right or it's wrong. And I also want to talk a little bit about the Trump supporters as well. I talked about this before, but I just wanted to elaborate because I think this is important. We'll start with the Trump supporters. If you're the kind of person who says they get what they deserve, you are wrong. And this is my opinion. Now, you can feel that you're right, and that's great, but you're paying me for my opinion, so here it is. It is wrong to wish harm on anyone. That's it. That's it. Like, across the board, doesn't matter what it is. Wishing that people come into harm, there's a problem with that. And some people are okay with it, I understand. A lot of people are very eye for an eye, kind of thing. But see, Heather, here's the problem with that. You tend to wish harm on people that you don't like, who end up in situations that you think, wow, this person deserves some sort of, harmful retribution. But when someone you like does the same thing, you are not as fervent in your declaration that they deserve harm, right? That very premise, that very hypocrisy is why it's wrong to wish harm on anyone. If we expand that to a micro situation, or a macro way of thinking about this, forgive me, you can't support the death penalty if you believe that the justice system is corrupt. Those two things cannot exist, right? Either you support the death penalty and are willing to accept how injustice comes along and makes it so that Black people are disproportionately sentenced to the death penalty, and you're okay with that because you support the death penalty, or you're against the corruption of the system and therefore don't want to see the death penalty given to anyone until that is corrected. So when we think about Trump supporters with that regard, there's no way that you can be against the injustice of our capitalist system. You can be, you can fight against poverty. You can want better education for people. You can want better health outcomes for people. But then when it's people that support Trump that are suffering from these macro level things, these institutional things, you're okay with it. And you say they get what they deserve. It's not how humanity works. And I think that we are in a place where we are having a major crisis of consciousness and conscientiousness, in that we no longer see the humanity in everyone. Now, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I want to go hold a Trump supporter's hand and hug them and work it all out. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if I think that it's wrong for poverty to exist and for anyone to live in it, then I mean that for everyone, regardless of race, gender, religion, location, sexual orientation, any of those things. It's just wrong, period. And yes, some people do vote against their own interests and they align with these ideologies that do not fit their lifestyles. But I'm telling you, wrong is wrong. And our work is supposed to be in liberating them from whatever paradigm in which they exist that makes them vote those ways or make them support people who are truly against them. We need to be working on the change of mindset, right? Rather than condemning people to live and reap what they sow, when what they're sowing is just wrong for anyone, right? That's just how I think about it. And so when you look at someone like an Omarosa, right, who's currently on Twitter being dragged and all this other stuff, people are making jokes about her, whether she's fired or resigned. People don't even actually know the truth about it, which is really what bothers me. No one knows if she was fired or if she resigned. Some of the reports saying that she resigns effective January 20th. Others are saying she was fired and escorted off the campus. Other people saying she wasn't escorted off the campus. Some people are saying that, she was kicking and screaming and being vulgar. Other people are saying that that didn't happen, that she's continuing her work, and that her last day will be on January 20th. So without even having all of the story, people are coming with their jokes and their hot takes. But I posed this question and just wanted to have people think about this. This is not necessarily about Omarosa. She's not one of my favorite people. Trust me. I think that she is a caricature of things. I think that she's out here performing in the same way that I think Kellyanne Conway is a performer, or Ann Coulter is a performer. I think that, however, for us to be ignorant and suggest that Black women in those spaces are treated the same way, that's ignorant. You have to be able to take this away from Omarosa and kind of look again at these systemic issues. The AP is reporting that Kelly fired her because she has too much influence over the president. So a Black woman is fired for having too much influence over the president, but Kellyanne Conway still has a job. Again, I'm not caping for Omarosa the individual, but I'm looking at the nuance of this and kind of considering what are we talking about here, Or it just so happens that all this comes out today, right after all of this talk about how Black women last night shifted the vote and all this other kind of stuff. And I won't even get into that because I already wrote about it. Go to my blog. You'll find a post called Mammy 2.0, Black women won't save you, whatever. I wrote about that months ago. But all this talk about Black women swinging this election last night, and then today, the one Black woman in any kind of reasonable, powerful position at all in the White House is so-called fired. And everybody's talking about, well, that's karma for her. That's karma for her. Okay, I get that you feel that way, right? Because you don't like her. But what if it was somebody that you actually respected? Maybe a conservative Black woman who was not as fringe and not as extreme as Omarosa, someone who was committed to doing her job. And what if she had been unceremoniously dumped in the same way? So you have to get away from your own prejudices about individuals and consider how the system functions to harm everyone, regardless of political association and ideologies. But see, when it's people we don't like, we're quick to compromise on our ideologies, on our principles, on our ideas of what is right and wrong. And that's messed up. And this is part of why we don't get very far with any of these efforts that we have to try to push for freedom and liberation and justice and all these things, because we are unwilling to check ourselves and our own complicity in these things as people who support that kind of thing. It's just not right. And I call on people to think about that when you think about Al Franken. So Al Franken was accused of sexual harassment. There were these photos, he apologized, things like that. 6 women came forward accusing him of inappropriate behaviors, blah, blah, blah. And this whole, upswell of, these kinds of things. And I'm glad all of this is coming out because I don't put shit past anybody, to be quite honest. So none of this surprised me. It does not matter who you name. I will not be surprised. Somebody could tell me that Barack Obama sexually assaulted someone in office, and I would not be surprised because he is a man who had a position of power and he's rich. Does not matter that he's Black. So anyway, so this whole thing with Al Franken is okay, well, he agrees to resign. But we all know this was a Dem coup. They were willing to support their guy. They were and there was a lot of people who were just oh, well, he did this in the past. He's sorry. We shouldn't lose him or whatever. They were willing to allow a man who has been accused by several women to remain in office, because they didn't want to lose their seat. So instead they flipped it and had this coup where he falls on the sword, right? So they can come back and have ammo to go after Trump. See, all of the politics of that, and all of that, women don't matter anywhere. And I hope people see that. Within that whole negotiation, even though that was led by women like Nancy Pelosi and others, it's like, and Senator Gillibrand, who I love and honor and respect dearly because I think that she's on the right side of history in most things. It's like, you got to be willing to come and step out and be like, wrong is wrong is wrong is wrong. And for those who were just like, well, maybe we could forgive him. We don't want to lose this seat. He's a good guy. He's doing a lot of things for the people. That's great. But we also know that good people can do horrible things. And people need to be held accountable. And if we want all people to be held accountable, we can't just focus on the people that we don't like. We can't say that we want Trump to resign amidst accusations of sexual harassment and assault, but then say we want Al Franken to keep his job. So I understand what the Dems were doing there, but it's like people were really quick to kind of flip on that ideology. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And so I think that's where the work becomes difficult. It's a lot of self-checks. It's a lot of, how am I complicit in a lot of this injustice and in this corruption? What are my own thoughts, my own ways of thinking? How are they influencing, where we're going or not going as a people? So I just want people to think about that a little bit more. And I know that I took an unpopular stance in talking about this Omarosa thing. And, it's unfortunate that people see it as me caping for Omarosa as an individual or defending her in any way. That is not what I was doing. I think a lot of what she has done and said has been completely abhorrent. I also know that she, as a Black woman, will be subjected to more scrutiny, more antagonism, more negativity than a Kellyanne Conway. How are they any different? They basically have the same job. You know what I'm saying? It's just in two different bodies. And we hear more from Kellyanne. Kellyanne gets all the CNN and the MSNBC and the Fox News coverage. We haven't seen Omarosa up there, and her job is a communications director and a public liaison. So why isn't she the one doing these news things? Anybody think about that? Why wasn't she fired a week ago if she wasn't de-fired? You know what I'm saying? These are things that I want people to think about. I want you to take a step further, and I want you to think about all the things that are in play and stop limiting your opinions just based on what your opinion of the person is. Because a lot of times we lose the message when we don't like the messenger, or we support shitty messages when we love the messenger. And we really got to kind of start doing better self-checks. And I think as I've gotten older, I've learned how to do that. Because I've definitely been guilty of that. I've definitely perpetuated that myself. So I'm constantly self-checking, how am I a part of this? And I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. All right, I told you I was going to keep it short, less than 15 minutes. And I usually go for on and on and on. Hope you enjoy this. I hope you enjoy your holiday season if you're celebrating, if you're with family. If you're not, sending my love to you nonetheless, because you're riding with me and I appreciate you.